Hi everyone, welcome to the session, Succeeding in Analytics with Governance First Approach. My name is Hakan and I work as the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Yapi Kredi in Istanbul. Yapi Kredi is one of the biggest private retail banks in Turkey with around 10 million active customers and 700 branches across the nation. And we're serving our customers with the maximum range of products and channels and service offerings. So there are some great sessions today and tomorrow in Data 2030 that experts will talk about data governance in detail and how to do the best data pipelines and etc. But I'll try to talk about the analytics governance not from the technical point of view, but from the organizational point of view. So I'll start with a brief introduction of myself. And I'll jump right into my presentation, which I'm opening right now and minimizing my face at the same time. Yeah. So I call myself an analytics professional, spent more than 20 years in financial services sector, both as a management consultant and as a bank executive, but around 15 years on the banking side. I worked in many multinationals, as you can see some logos there, and also in top tier 1 banks in Turkey. So I did hands-on predictive analytics, took responsibility of retail lending decisions at one point, but mainly founded and managed analytics centers of excellence. And this is what I do right now in Yapi Kredi as well. So in the next 20-25 minutes, I'll try to give my point of view in facing the challenge of scaling up the analytics in a big organization. I'll give more details about why I believe setting up an analytics center of excellence is one of the most logical things to do. And finally, I try to show where the governance concept fits, either for data governance or analytics governance. So for the last decade, I took the challenge of scaling up the analytics capability and getting more positive impact through analytics projects in different banks. So I assume this challenge is common among the sector because the concept of analytics is relatively new in banking, right? So it's covering maybe 2 or maximum 3 decades. And it's the last 5 to 6 years where we had a serious jump forward in terms of using more complex algorithms, being able to use cheaper and more flexible technology, and of course, more and more amount of data. When we look at, I call this inner circle of a bank, and I call it inner simply because I just excluded any legal authority or vendors ecosystem or the fintech partnership ecosystem from the picture. We see different layers that we have to connect to each other in the best way possible. So we put customers in the center, then there's their different needs according to where they are in their own life cycle. Could be anything. It could be a need for a loan, a mortgage, or some expert advice on how to utilize their savings or anything. Then there's the products and services that banks provide with in order to cover those needs of the customers. And then there's the channels, mobile being the most utilized in the recent years, as we all know, where the banks have to maximize the quality of customer experience, keep clients happy, hopefully with a minimum amount of disturbing interactions. So, no, but we all do this, right? We're all financial services customers ourselves. And we can't say that the communication we experience with those companies is perfect. Anyway, when I look at this, I see like hundreds of potential problems on each cycle, to be honest, but also the solutions that can be available by the correct use of data through good analytics processes. I mean, because everything we log, every transaction, every timestamp, every decision from both parties, from the banks or from the customer side, all these have an information value about our customers, which could be very, very useful in our strategies and actions. So we have everything we need in this picture in order to improve our decision quality and improve customer experience at the same time. But especially when a bank has millions of customers who are in touch with us 24/7 in today's banking, it's very easy for a bank to find themselves in a very complicated situation. I mean, real life is way different than this picture for sure. So, in order not to get lost in big chunks of data or get drowned in hyped concepts, I believe we have to keep it simple and come up with a solid plan for data and analytics transformation and execute a roadmap to shift the organization's culture to data driven decision making. So, if you want to keep things simple, we should define the problem as clear as possible. So, I decided to split the problem between the data itself and analytics as a process. So this is how I reframe the business problem. Regarding the data, we know it's getting huge, it's getting more unstructured, and the frequency, the flow, it all gets changing. So how can we store and categorize and utilize the petabytes of data in the best way possible? This should be the question. And how can we easily access and turn it into valuable information at each decision point that we're making within the bank? And with regards to analytics, of course, the question should be framed like, how can we apply the perfect analytics process to be able to give the best decision, best response, or best service at the time that we need to give? So the truth is, I mean, it's not an easy task for banks, the answers to those questions. It's always easier said than done. Actually, I believe it's hard for most of the companies, especially if they're not natural born digital ones. So we all say that there are three pillars on which the successful use of analytics is made possible. I know it sounds like cliche, but this is the fact. So these pillars are talent, being the most important to me, and the one that will remain the most important. The scalable data and analytics infrastructure, the technology, and the processes that are suitable for fast delivery of analytics and coordination among different units of the bank through automated processes. So I believe there's plenty of room for improvement for all these three things. Just to visit some of them quickly, in terms of skills and know-how that you will need in your analytics and data governance teams, I think banks need to hire senior analytics and governance talent from outside the organization, create a team that is sufficient enough to kickstart the program, and then continue with a good mix of hiring seniors and juniors and training the juniors then within the organization. So supporting processes for best practice analytics and data governance function. We know that these are usually not in place, and this is a serious task that involves not only the analytics team, but also the process management team, the IT, and the business units all together. So there's a lot of things to do here as well. And regarding technology, claiming that the banks are technology rich, they have all the data and huge IT investments, so they are ready whatever the challenge is. I think this wouldn't be fair. This is not really true. I mean, we need to be very flexible and adapt to changes that happens, be it technological progress, be it changes in data structures or changes in data formats, in frequencies, or the developments in open source coding languages. We need to stay ready for that and very flexible to adapt all those changes happening. But when we say that these are the three most important things that we need to improve, the top management can go like, okay, ask HR to close the talent gap and ask your IT colleagues to renew the infrastructure for you, and please have the process management team to do what they have to do. Well, it wouldn't work this way for so many reasons. First of all, the solution roadmap is, I'm sure it's going to be too big to handle in a bank-wide scale. So we believe that we have to work on things in smaller scale, make it work for a small analytics team. Then you can pave the way for the data-driven decisioning across the bank. Second, for some capabilities, it's better to keep it centralized for banks. For example, the things that require proficiency and which is more technical, such as predictive analytics, optimization problems, relatively complex machine learning projects, I think these are the tasks that banks have to assign to a central small group to make the most out of it. That's why we adopted the strategy as assess where you are in terms of those three pillars: people, process, and technology, and define the gap between the bank versus global best practice. Then centralize the efforts, form an analytics center of excellence, reach best practice level in this center, and then enable the rest of the organization. So, there are some alternatives regarding the organizational structure of the analytics center of excellence. But if your ambition is to shift the entire bank's mindset to data-driven decisioning, then my experience tells me that the right approach will be hub and spokes, rather than making it 100% centralized or 100% decentralized. So in this entire journey of analytics enablement, point number 3 on the slide, the phase of founding the governance function for both data and analytics, to me is one of the most crucial aspects of a successful implementation, yet one of the most neglected at the same time. I can understand how it's usually disregarded. It's usually due to focusing only on the analytics projects, which are always too many to handle, with strict deadlines, with modeling projects that require regulatory approval, and so on. But this situation of trying to do everything at once, always in a hurry, skipping the inventory tasks, skipping the methodology checks, skipping detailed monitoring, this whole thing eventually becomes a bigger roadblock for the greater objective of helping the bank adopt a data-driven decision culture. And moreover, it eventually causes the analytics center of excellence grow in an unnecessary way. Rather than working on carrying the know-how to the rest of the bank, it grows and grows in an unnecessary way. So in order to avoid this, we adopted governance first approach into our journey of analytics transformation. So I'd like to briefly discuss how we structured the Analytics Center of Excellence, which functions we thought should work together and why. So we can see the analytics and BI as the engine, which is in the middle. The engine, which is responsible of the execution of analytics modeling, strategic analysis, which will direct the team in the right way in terms of which problems to tackle first and in a logical order. And the data engineering team, we can see it as the enabler of the model development lifecycle. So that's another key function. This team prepares and maintains the big data lake, the analytical data marts, and also cooperates with IT on the deployment and on other things that we need to work together with the IT. But the governance function, again, we believe this is the driver of the whole analytics transformation roadmap. The governance creates the policies and principles around how this program will work within the Analytics Center of Excellence itself and with the key stakeholders, such as IT for sure, and risk management, and also with the business units. So we see the structure necessary for the smoothest functioning of model development lifecycle. Having named the unit as Data and Analytics Governance, as you can see on the left-hand side, I know that these two concepts represent slightly different things and serves different aspects. But in our case, we haven't built them in parallel. Instead, we went for the data governance first and then started a journey of analytics transformation and went with the analytics governance piece. But yet, data governance should come first for a reason. You need a good level of discipline in your approach to data. And moreover, you have to make the rest of the organization understand its importance and make sure that the governance team provides the business unit with the required know-how and tools and technology to have the proper ownership of their own data stack. They should also be capable of monitoring the quality of the data assets that they own. Therefore, a well-structured and functional data governance is a prerequisite if you want to succeed in analytics or strategic reporting or whatever you plan to do with your data. So if you're at the very beginning of the analytics transformation roadmap in your organization, or you made some big changes in the organization and you want to create this roadmap from scratch, then I guess the first thing to be done is to come up with a solid plan of putting in place a robust data governance across the bank, starting from the most important domains. It will be harder and more complicated, but if you have sufficient talent and you think you can drive both data and analytics governance efforts at the same time, well, be my guest. I haven't experienced that, but I can already see some pitfalls doing that. Though we worked on the foundation of data governance and analytics governance one by one, we asked the same team that worked on the data governance program to use all their experience and work on the analytics governance as well. So we have many reasons behind that, but first and foremost, it's the governance expertise that you need there. The team have already had the experience of delivering know-how to each business units in an order and act as consultants to the business units, explaining from scratch what we meant by data governance, what the roles and responsibilities were, and how they would continue their life as data owners. So, in terms of methodology, it was pretty much the same, but this time the topic was not the data itself, instead, what we all could do with the data that we own altogether. So, it makes it easier for each business domain to cooperate with the governance team and set up the analytics governance on their part and execute these newer policies and procedures, just like they had done on the data governance part. On the other hand, yes, we will add a bit more roles and responsibilities on business units, but the analytics governance team is there to help every colleague in other units to do what they're asked to do in line with their responsibility. I mean, they give everything documented, the procedures, the guidelines, and collect feedback from the business units to remove unnecessary steps from each and every process. And the consultants and the business units continues to work together as in each phase of model development lifecycle. In fact, the additional responsibilities that come with the analytics governance, they're kind of bigger burden on the governance consultants rather than the business units, since the analytics governance should cover the analytics center of excellence working methodology and processes as well. So this puts an additional load on the governance team because it introduces many more software to be governed, such as analytics governance tools, modeling platforms, performance monitoring software, and the like. So in the next two slides, I wanted to briefly explain what kind of a working mechanism we form by putting in place the analytics governance. So as I said earlier, it defines how we work both within the analytics team and also defines the relationship between the analytics team and the rest of the organization, who are natural parts of an analytics process. So with regards to roles and responsibilities, I've listed them on the next slide, by the way. Again, we try to keep those simple. The last thing we want to do would be causing confusion around who's supposed to do what. So within the analytics team, the process is configured with the objective of the fastest and smoothest delivery of an analytics project. And in a bigger group, which is on the left-hand side, all relevant parties from the business, the analytics team, and the governance team gather around and make sure everything is in line with the predefined processes so that we're working on the rightfully prioritized project. We're not losing time in any of the phases of model development lifecycle. And of course, the outcome is in line with the business team's expectations. So as I mentioned before, it takes a collective effort from the analytics team, from the IT, from the business unit, and all the others, such as HR and process management team as well. So if you look at the roles here, some of them are kept within the Analytics Center of Excellence for the sake of centralizing and better managing the proficiency that is built within. So the roles of model owner, model partner, and data engineer, they're assigned to data scientists, data engineers, and data governance consultants who form the Analytics Center of Excellence. Of course, there should be an ongoing relationship with IT. It's almost on a day-to-day basis. since the analytics teams, engineering operations should be in fully compliance with all the IT policies. So the relationship with IT is co-managed by the data engineer from the analytics center of excellence and the technical model steward from the IT. And having the business users and project sponsors gather around the table, it lets us do the correct prioritization and come to an alignment at a broader level. The other thing is, which is equally important, if not more, making the business units an important part of the analytics process. It would definitely speed up the cultural shift into data-driven decision making. So as I come to an end of the session, I'd like to leave with three important points that would probably summarize what I tried to tell. First of all, if we're talking about data and analytics transformation, we should accept in the first place that it doesn't happen overnight, but creating a sensible roadmap will help you avoid any unnecessary waste of time. Second, kicking off such a big transformation across the bank would only cause you increase the magnitude of your mistakes, possible mistakes, and the impact of your wrong decisions will be worse, and making an easy to follow roadmap will be very, very hard. Therefore, I believe a smaller group of people, the Analytics Center of Excellence, as I call it, equipped with the right technology, can quickly progress and then start carrying out know-how to the others. And finally, all these objectives could only be realized by capable people, the right talent, which is in short supply, as we all know. So you have to give equal importance to hire the best people available and also train the promising ones in the best way possible. So that was it from my side. I hope it resonated with you all. I'd like to close the session by saying big thanks to the Data 2030 family and all the organizers of the event for giving me the chance to be here and share my thoughts with you on this specific topic. Please find me on LinkedIn to further discuss or simply to keep in touch. Bye.